Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of a Godship podcast. I am your host, Shayna Rattler, and I am so excited that you are joining us here today, whether this is your first episode or one of many. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I have a quick favor to ask of everyone who is listening to this episode. So if you will take a screenshot of wherever it is that you are listening to this episode, whether it's your laptop or a device, take a screenshot of it and post it on Instagram. And when you do, if you will tag us at a Godship, I would really appreciate it. It helps us to spread the word so that more people can get out of disruption and into their destiny. So I'm excited today to introduce you to what is becoming a friend of mine, Roxanne Eng. So I am going to read Roxanne's official bio, and then I will let her tell you a little bit more about who she is and what it is that she does. Roxanne is the owner and CEO of Life Coaching with Roxanne Eng. She is a life coach who guides individuals who are in transition to create lasting, sustainable change in their lives. Her purpose is to provide a safe and powerful place for her clients to discover the answers they need in order to move forward spiritually, personally, and professionally with absolute purpose and clarity. Her guiding belief is in the power of self-awareness, as this is the fuel for personal growth, allowing her clients to make positive changes, find their happiness, and create their best life. With proven tools and techniques, her clients are able to discover their true selves, their true desires, and manifest the life of their dreams. Her mission is to inspire, ignite passion, and empower amazingness within oneself. Roxanne is a mother of 3 beautiful children, and she resides in Sandbury, Ontario, Canada, which I just found out that at the time of this recording, it is March, and she says it's plus 8 degrees, and that is considered to be spring. So that doesn't sound like spring to me, but anyway, welcome to the show, Roxanne Eng.
Thank you, Shayna, for having me.
You're so welcome. So Roxanne, that's your official bio, but I would love to just hear a little bit more about what type of clients it is that you work with, and in your own words, describe what it is that you do.
Yeah, awesome. So I love to work with clients who are seeking their why, the purpose of their life, and what are they here to do? What are they meant to do? What are they designed to do? What is their human design? And that is my passion. I believe that once we have our purpose, we become unstoppable and we live the life of our dreams because we're following our soul's calling, and we're following our spirituality, and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing instead of doing what we were told we were supposed to do.
I love that. I call that being shoulded on. Like so often we're shoulded on. Sometimes we should on ourselves, but oftentimes we're shoulded on people, and they may have the best intentions. You've heard it before, like you should focus on your career before you focus on a family. Or for myself, I went to school to be a therapist. And so when I decided that I wanted to kick all that to the curb, they were like, well, you spent all this time and all this money and you're making great money. You should just do that. Now you want to go off and do this. So I love that. What should we be doing? How did you put it? Say it again.
To do what we're actually designed to do and not what we were told we should be doing.
Right. Design versus told. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are listening to this podcast for the first time, or if you're new to the world of a Godship, my definition of a Godship is any time that a disruption in your life collides with God's purpose and moves you into a greater destiny. So Roxanne, can you think of a time that you experienced an unexpected circumstance or a disruption in your life, whether it was a setback or a delay or a disappointment?
In business or personal, or doesn't matter?
Either one, whatever you want to share with the audience.
Right. So I've had a few near-death experiences, as we kind of had talked about a little bit earlier. And for that reason, that's what shook my faith, but it also made sure that I followed my purpose, and it allowed me to truly discover who I was. And without that disruption, I would have never found myself. I've never would have believed in myself to think that I was made to do something else opposed to what I was told I should be doing in life.
Yeah,
And that's what helped me.
that's good. So I told the story wrong. For those of you who are listening to this podcast, you may or may not know that I have a television show, and Roxanne was actually a guest on the television show as well. And I said that she had a near life or a near death experience 3 times, and she corrected me and said that no, it was actually 4. So God allowed you to almost die 4 times in your life. So why do you think he had to allow those situations to occur and then multiple times on top of that?
I think he had to allow those things to occur because I wasn't living in a dream, but I wasn't living to my potential, and I was almost blocked, and I had all these, receptors on that I was, being influenced by social media, by my parents or by family and friends that, we're here, to go to school, get a job, get a career, start a family, buy a house, like all those things. And I was doing all those things, but yet I was in an unhealthy relationship pattern as well. So that wasn't helping me. And I think that was his way of telling me, wake up. And if you don't wake up, then something great isn't going to like your life isn't going to go the way you want it to go.
Yeah,
So, and that was my every time that it happened, it was like in a moment of an awakening. And the last time it was like, okay, like I heard you, like I know I need to do my self-work. I need to find what I'm meant to do because I'm not living my purpose and I'm not living in alignment with my soul. And I knew that, but I didn't know how to get there.
so how did you respond?
I took a year to myself. I started doing self work. I started working on all my own, unhealthy patterns, my relationship patterns. I worked on myself, my confidence, my self esteem, my self love, self respect, self worth. And when I understood what I was doing, I knew that I needed to help others do the same thing. And sometimes, if you don't know what to do, you need someone to guide you who has been through a transition like that or has went through an awakening and help guide you through it, and that it's not just coincidences and synchronicities. There's a reason why these things are being put forward to you, and it's time to listen and pay attention and follow the direction that you're being pulled to and stop resisting it and go with your flow.
I love that. I believe that there are a lot of times that people, we all use the same language, but we may all have a different definition of it, or we may have a really good understanding of what to do, but we may lack actually how to do that. And I think that we live in a day and age now where we hear a lot of people say, I did self work, or it's important if you're overcoming an adversity that you need to do self work. So, can you share 1 or 2 things, whether it's from what you specifically did in self work or just something that you maybe recommend for your clients? So, if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, I need to do some self work, but how does that show up? Like, what do I do?
Absolutely. So for myself, I was a nice girl. I hated saying no to people. I love to people please. I love to say yes to everybody because I I'm an empath and I love everyone and I believe in the good in everyone. But it was draining me because not everyone is truly good in their soul, right? And I wanted to fix everybody and I had a hard time, if someone would ask me to do something for them, I would drain myself at my expense, right? To help others. And it wasn't working for me. So one thing that I knew is that I had a hard time saying no. So then I started reading books on nice girl syndrome, which really was a good eye opener for me. It made me realize that it's okay to say no. And it's healthy to say no. And it's just as good to say no as it is to say yes. And if people can't accept it, you don't have to have a reason to say no. You don't have to give someone an explanation to say no. You need to do it for you. And if it feels right in your soul, then you do it. And if it doesn't, then you don't do it. And that was one of the things that I worked on. And then I worked on, because I had, unhealthy relationship pattern. I started looking into like emotionally abusive relationships, physical, like all those kinds of books to understand the flags and to understand what I would be going into if I ever got into another relationship again. And that to me, it armed me, and knowledge is armor and knowledge is power. And if we don't have the knowledge and we don't do the research on the things that we are lacking or that we're not as good at, then we're never going to be powerful in those things because we don't have the knowledge.
Absolutely. I love that. So number one, no is a complete sentence, right? You
Right.
know, I agree totally with what you said. No does not always have to be accompanied with an explanation. Sometimes it's just no.
Right.
And no's make room for your yeses.
Right.
Because saying yes to everything, especially things that you don't want to say yes to. Then when something comes along that you want to give a yes, you don't have any room for a yes because you didn't learn how to say no. And
Right.
then I also like what you said about, knowledge being armor, because if you want to shift from any place to another place, most of the time, new knowledge and new information is required in order for you to do something new. You said for yourself, were able to identify how important it was to break the toxic cycles if you didn't want to continue to have the same lifestyle. And if you didn't want to continue to live the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting new results, that you knew that you had to get new information so that you could do something different. I love that.
Absolutely. And I also realize that, you look at who you surround yourself with, and what you surround yourself with depicts who you are. Doesn't matter if you want it to or not, it does. So you look at your friends, you look at your family, you look at anyone who surrounds you, you look at your environment, the movies you watch, the music we listen to, everything. And to make that change, it was like sometimes you have to remove toxicity for something amazing to come into your life, because we only have so much space within, like that surrounds us. Like everything is filled by molecules. So do we want it to be surrounded by positive molecules, or do we want it to be surrounded by negative molecules? And sometimes we have to remove the negativity for the positivity to come in. And that was a lot of work to do, and it was hard to do because you don't want to get rid of friendships that you've had for 20 years. But if they're not serving you and they're not bringing value to your life, you got to let it go. You got to let it go.
You're dropping so many good nuggets. I'm writing down so many things here that I'm going to be struggling to figure out exactly what to put in the show notes, because you're sharing so many things that are so tweetable. So let's go a little bit deeper in this conversation
Right.
of how someone accesses a God shift, and how do we actually partner with God in order to go from disruption into the destiny that He has for us. And I believe that it is important that we elevate God's position in our life in order to get to where it is that we want to go, and ultimately where it is that He needs us. So in your opinion, why is that important to actually elevate God's position in your life?
I think it's very important because I think our faith is our belief system. And if we don't have that higher being and God to believe in, and we feel like we're doing things and we don't have that higher power, we almost feel discouraged and deflated. When people don't have faith, or they don't believe in, a higher being, they're lost. They're
Yeah,
lost because they don't see the big picture. They don't understand that somebody else is orchestrating things and that we need to follow because they're leading us to our path. And if we don't follow that, we're lost. We're
yeah.
lost.
You're
And I
going to end
call
up
those
somewhere. You just may not like it.
and I call them lost souls. And that's why I want to help them, because I want them to find their purpose. And coming with purpose, you need to have faith. And regardless of what your faith is, you need to have faith.
Right. Faith is needed for purpose. I love that.
Mhm.
Tweetable girl. You are just a tweetable girl. So we're going to pause for a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with some tips of how people can actually put their God shift into motion. This episode is brought to you by the free guide When God Says Shift. Inside that guide, you will discover the 4 shifts required to follow God's plan to move you out of disruption and into a greater destiny, expectancy, and possibility. Head to godsaysshift.com to access it now. So Roxanne, let's share some advice with someone. So if someone is listening to this episode and they are struggling to either embrace their disruption or to put their faith first, what advice would you give them?
I would say trust yourself and trust higher purpose, trust in God, trust your faith. Don't doubt yourself. Because when we start, I think people just need to stop focusing what's in their head and what they're hearing and, on those tidbits of being lost, or if they're going through hardship that they think that there's no God out there and, faith isn't real and so on. But I think people need to really focus is feel it with your heart and your soul. Stop going into your mind, because the mind is where the self-doubt lies. And if you really want to feel something in your heart, your soul, you're going to feel that higher being there. You're going to feel that greater purpose there. And there's no denying that. It's our mind that denies it. It's not our soul, and it's not our heart. It's not our feelings that deny those feelings. And if you're struggling to believe in your faith, and yet you count all your blessings that you have in your life, well, you can't count all your blessings and not accept your challenges.
Another tweetable nugget: you can't count your blessings without acknowledging your challenges. It's all part of the process. I heard TD Jakes say one time that we all want the promise, but we never want the process that it takes to get to the promise. And so the challenges and the obstacles are all part, not only are they part of the process, but they are a necessary part of the process. We just have to be so careful not to allow those difficulties to actually distract us from the destination. It's very easy to stop because we're met with challenges. It's very easy to turn back and go the other way whenever we have been met with difficulty. But, I've never met anyone that has not gone through some form of difficulty. Most of the people that I have followed who are doing anything impactful or significant, or, even the wealthy, it did not come smoothly. It didn't come, without detours and delays and disappointments. I just think that that's just, kind of part of it.
And it's within our greatest challenges that we find that amazingness within us, right? It's where we find our strengths and we find who we really are and what we're made of and what we have supporting us, and that being God or your faith or anything, that's your driving force. Because if you don't have faith, like I said, you're lost.
Yeah. And sometimes our losses are our biggest lessons.
Yeah.
I probably, whether it's been in life or whether it's been in business, I probably have learned more from my quote unquote failures than I have, from my successes. So we have to quit wanting to be someone that never goes through anything.
Right. And I see failures in a completely different light, because I feel that as humans, we're intended and we're designed to make mistakes. That's how we learn it. And that's the way we should learn. And I tell people, go and make mistakes, like have fun making them. Just don't keep making the same one over and over again. But when we make mistakes, and I don't believe that failure are failures, I believe the true definition of failure is when you give up. When you give up on life and you give up on your path, that to me is failure. Trying something and it not working out, that is not failure. That's innovation, right? And innovation, doesn't always work out. Like, how many times did it take for, electricity to be created? Like, you look at those things, if they would have failed and they gave up, that would have been the true definition of failure. But they didn't give up, they persisted, and now we have electricity. But if
Right.
they would have given up, failure. Right.
We would just be sitting in the dark.
Yeah, we'd be sitting in the dark in plus 6 degree weather.
Exactly. And calling that spring. But anyway, as we begin to wrap up, as you can see, Roxanne is a wealth of knowledge. I could only imagine if she is able to go this deep and help us so much and drop so much knowledge and wisdom in the span of 30 minutes, what she could do if you actually worked with her in her business. So Roxanne, as we begin to wrap up, where can we find you? And is there anything that you can offer us if we want to take things further with you?
Absolutely. So anyone can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Also, my websites are directed right on my social media. Also, like I am open to working with anyone who feels like they don't know what their purpose is. And if they're looking for their soul's calling and they just need a little bit of a boost to or a guiding light to help them through a challenge in life. And my mission is just to help as many people as I can because I believe once we live in our purpose and we become the people we want to be, the world will be a very different place. And what I'm offering right now is I do workshops. I do free workshops. I do confidence building, finding your purpose, enlightened relationships. So if anyone's interested in those things, then I would be happy to work with anybody.
Okay. And so what website should they go to if they want to take advantage of one of those free workshops?
Yeah. So my website is Life Coaching with Roxanne Bio. It's my maiden name. Yeah, and they can find me on the web.
Perfect. And so the ways that you can find her on social media and the website, because I don't know how to spell that right now. So I'm going to ask her that when we end this broadcast, and I will make sure that a link so that you don't have to worry about if you misspell it or not. I will make sure that a link to her website where you can find those free workshops and her social media handles are all here in the show notes so that you all can take further action with this gym. So Roxanne, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being willing to share your God shift experience. I believe that many people are going to hear this and be able to get to the point where they are living an amazing life, just like you have been able to create for yourself. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Shayna. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of a Godship podcast. I hope that you will consider sharing this and join us back here next week for another episode. Take care. Bye-bye.